Hello, you lovely lot. Welcome back to All for United. I'm Ben. It's good to be with you. I've been in Cornwall the last week. As you can see, I'm sun-kissed. I've put on about 5 stone, but I'm raring to go. That's all that matters. Thank you for joining us on today's stream. It's a weekend review, which gives me and the guys an opportunity to chat about everything, including and not Manchester United. We're going to be having a look at the weekend's Premier League action. We're going to chat a little bit about the 3 managers on the brink of a sacking, because I think we can safely say there are 3 under a lot of pressure right now. Plus, of course, we'll be diving in to what opposition fans think as well. We're All for United. Hit subscribe, hit the like button, get in the live chat. Let's do this. Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United. Yes, and passionate Reds we are. We've had some great content recently. We've got a great week of shows coming up. 2 big games for United, Atalanta and, of course, Liverpool at the weekend. But let's have the final say on the weekend's action first and foremost. Mark, you was on hosting duties last night on AFU Uncut. So although I heard a bit from you, we didn't really hear a lot from you in terms of your thoughts, because you had a panel that done the talking for you, I think. So let's start with that hopeless performance on Saturday from United. We lost 4-2 to Leicester. On reflection, and I'm going to get into my thoughts in a moment, it was a deserved defeat, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we needed a bit of a rocket, to be honest. It's been a long time coming. The football that we've been playing hasn't been good enough. Not what you expect from a Manchester United team, especially with the squad that we've got. And it was a poor performance by everybody across the pitch, quite honestly. I think it can be an array of things really, but I think starting Maguire was a really bad idea by Ollie. Matic I thought played okay going forward for a change, but defensively wasn't particularly great. I thought Pogba was incredibly slow. I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka looked a little bit lethargic, still sort of going through a bit of a poor run of form since the beginning of the season. Luke Shaw doesn't look up to speed, and we're just not firing. As much as it was wonderful to see Ronaldo come back, I'm not saying that we can't fit him into the side, but I just don't know if an out-and-out number 9, although Cavani did well last year, is what we need, very disappointing weekend. Very, very disappointing weekend, and we really need to turn it around and quickly.
I think it's interesting. Your terminology there was like Ollie's biggest mistake, and I'm more asking the question here in my own head. Actually, what was Ollie's biggest mistake at the weekend? Because there were so many of them. But then I also agree with Stu and the guys on the show. I've watched the game back. So I watched the highlights originally, and then I watched some extended highlights, and now I watched the full 90 minutes. I also listened to the radio commentary because we were to and fro different places in Cornwall. And I put this on my timeline. If we went in such a bad reign of form right now, we would put that down to being a bad day at the office more than a consistent theme on Saturday. And the reason why I say that is there wasn't one player that actually turned up. If you actually watch it back, every single player made a couple of errors. I know a few people, and James done this, put out about how great Greenwood was, and actually the poor performance masked over how good his performance was. Well, actually, if you watch it back, our right side was so exposed every time. Castagna, their left back, was getting so much space in between Wan-Bissaka and Greenwood, and that's because Greenwood wasn't doing his job defensively that we needed him to do. Whereas on the other side, it was completely different. Shaw was trying to get forward too much. Sancho was coming back too much to try and support him, and it was leaving actually quite a lot of space for them in the left fullback position where Shaw was meant to be. It's quite interesting how the game played out. And I know not many people want to go and watch it back, but it really was a bad day in the office on Saturday. And I think the worrying thing, Ahmed, for me, is that ultimately everything that we do badly and all our problem areas were a lot worse on Saturday, which makes it look like such a downhill trajectory, doesn't it? So yeah. What frustrated you the most against Leicester? What for you, if you could have, was it the midfield were too static because we didn't press enough on the front? Was it our defence were just hopeless? Like for you, where did we lose that game?
I think we lost it I think before it even started, because of the decisions Ollie made. I said last night, quite bluntly, for those who didn't watch Uncut, I was still at the time at a loss for words. But this afternoon, maybe a bit more thinking time, having an opportunity to sort of assess the game on a much more wider spectrum. We were outplayed by Leicester, out tactics by Rodgers, and simply put, there's no you can't mask it with, this player did something wrong because he wasn't in the right position, or we just committed our fullbacks too much. Each to their own, as you mentioned, Ben, everyone made mistakes, and that collectively led to it was a collective downfall from Manchester United. The one thing that drew the most ire for me, I think, aside from the performance, was the nature of Leicester's response and how we could not stop it. We get back into a game, a brilliant goal by Marcus Rashford, and no sooner after we've celebrated the goal and get back to our positions, we're already questioning ourselves again because Leicester have gone up at the other end with gusto and scored in 13 seconds. I think that for me talks a lot about what is wrong with the team at the moment. And yeah, there's nothing that says that we're not relying on individuals. We clearly are. Everyone's playing pretty much for themselves and not as a collective unit. Ollie's struggling to find that balance of getting the players to work as a team, but also have that individual quality, sort of as one. He can't find the best system because there's too many attacking players. The defense can be scattergun sometimes, not every time. They had very good performances, yet to have more than 2 clean sheets in a row. So we still have to clean up in that aspect. But he made a mistake not playing Maguire. He played Maguire. He should probably have started by. I said it on Friday night or Thursday, I think it was. And I think also we should have been a bit more. We should have given players like Van der Beek a chance, or Jesse Lingard. Those guys would have had a bit more energy, a bit more, fresh legs. Could have done a bit better role than some of the players out there. Pogba just came back from the Nations League, even though he had 4 or 5 days rest. I still didn't think he was up to mark. So, look, on fair reflection, in just the general scheme of Manchester United at the moment, Wednesday's a huge game. I think while this is detrimentally bad for our Premier League aspirations, it's about the next game now, and how every game from now on is crucial for Ollie. And we're going to touch on the managerial situation shortly, but it's not just that it's a big game for him, but it's a big game for some of these players, because I don't know how much more the fans will take of mediocre performances like those.
Yeah, a lot has been said about Ollie, Mark, and a lot has been said about Pogba, as it always is after defeat. A lot obviously spoken about Harry Maguire, which I understand criticism, but hate is a bit too far for me. But what about Jadon Sancho? We saw him start. He definitely wasn't the worst player on the pitch, but doesn't his start to life at United sort of sum us up so far this season? All the promise, but ultimately no coherent, so to speak, or visible signs that actually we are going to be at the top level this year.
Yeah, I do agree. You can't pin that on Jadon. I do think it epitomises where we may be going this season. I actually think Jadon has been hugely underrated. His movement is excellent, and is one of the players that can really sort of hold his head high after the Saturday. I thought he looked quite dangerous, and I really wanted him to really sort of go at that defence. I read some comments this morning, actually. I don't know if you've seen them, from Manchester Evening News. Basically, Solskjaer is privately unhappy Man United failed to sign a midfielder. Sources say the unlikelihood of midfield signing did not stop United from wanting to buy one, and there was an agreement within the club that a winger and centre back should be prioritised. Now, it's just bizarre how all this kind of comes out now, and I'm not sure whether it's to sort of save face. But going back to your point, it does sort of sum up United at the moment. They've got so much talent in that squad, and roll back a couple of months ago, we were extremely excited to see how it was gonna work out and work out together, and see how what we could achieve this season, and it's just not taken off yet. But listen, it worries me about this sort of, 3 managers potentially already up for losing their jobs, and I just think it's still too soon. I am frustrated by Ollie at the moment. I am frustrated by what I've seen, but it's very quickly gone from one extreme to the other, and I just think that people and fans these days just don't quite have enough patience. And we had this same conversation last season, Ben. You go through a bad stage, and then all of a sudden you pick up a run of form, which he will, and then everybody is singing from the same hymn sheet and thinking, "Oh, brilliant, yeah." And yes, it's frustrating at the moment. Yes, losing awfully with so many issues at the weekend is painful, but I just think we need to kind of check it a little bit more and just wait a bit longer. Do you know what I mean?
I don't disagree, but I think ultimately, and Ahmed, let me come over to you. I think the frustration lies within the fact that this team had the perfect run to be at the top of the pile at this point going into the run of games that we have got. Obviously, circumstance doesn't always work out like that. However, United haven't even shown an ounce of promise that we should or could be at the top now. It's not like a decision didn't go our way. Ultimately, we haven't played well enough in games that we should have played well enough to be able to get the 3 points and to be able to be top of the pile. And ultimately, a lot of the questions do always come down to the coaching and the manager and then the players and then the team. It's just the way that ecosystem of football works, right? So, Ahmed, let me come to you. Look at where we are now in the league. We are now 6th. We are level on points with Everton and West Ham, where we're currently at. We're 5 points off the leaders. We're 4 points off of the team that we're playing against next. Title race. Where are we at?
Where are we? This time last year, I think we were in a much worse position than this. And I think, if I'm not wrong, we lost to Palace, we were beaten by Spurs, we scraped a win against Brighton, and I think somewhere in between we lost to Arsenal. It was a very shaky start to the season. We didn't look like anywhere near a side that were top 4 challenging, which is what clearly was the objective at that point. Obviously, as Mark alluded a few moments ago, we could see something happening, and he said this last night in Uncut, where we could be having a blip. We could be in the middle of one of those little periods where the team, yes, they're not gelling, they're still learning about one another's, strengths and weaknesses, and they will learn that over time. I just think that this particular blip comes at a time when United have just had a favourable run of games to start the season and have been unable to, at the very least, I'd say, pick up 4 more points than what they have currently. They should really have by now 8. They should be around with Liverpool and above Man City at this point. But the performances for me against Southampton, the recent game against Everton, where they should have realistically played a lot better in the second half. Those were games that, for me, exposed United. Aston Villa at home was just a genuinely poor performance. And again, we are not good from set pieces late on in games, defensively apparently, and we have a set piece coach in the club. Generally, the season start so far hasn't been overly good, and it's starting to show now what expose the pressures that not only Ollie's under, but I think us as fans are under, because we expect so much from the team, but when they cannot deliver, it'll become more and more of a more painful thing to watch as the season goes on. This run of games we're about to go on isn't forgiving, especially the fact we're playing back-to-back games against Atalanta in the Champions League in and amongst this run. So it is, as Connor likes to say, or many fans will feel this way right now, make or break for Ollie. And for these players, it is put up or shut up. If you can't exactly show us that you're able to play in the shirt at the moment, then you're next on the line here, I'm afraid. And
can I just quickly say, Ahmed, I don't think it's just make or break for Ollie. I think ultimately it's make or break for this team. I think we come out of these games and we don't take these teams to the sword, so to speak, then we can forget a title challenge. Like, it's as simple as that. And also we can forget about having confidence going into the later round of cup games as well, when we'll face these teams inevitably because they're really good footballing sides. You know, I think whoever the manager is, it doesn't matter when you've got a tough run of games like this. You have to come out the other side, you know, in one piece, because if you don't, then your season's done. It really is, unless there's something that completely breaks it for the others.
I think right now, the first, second, and third is basically 3 of the top 4. No word of a lie. That is 3 of the top 4. Brighton are there just because of good form and they grind their results. They somehow pick up points against sides who should favourably be beating them, but they play good football and they get the points they need. Tottenham are there because, good starts of the season. Little bit of a blip where they lost 3 in a row. They've come back and now won the last 2 in the Premier League, if I'm not wrong. So they're starting to come back around as well. West Ham have played well. Everton have been solid this season so far. There's a lot of teams I'm worried about. And yes, Leicester beating us and they're 11th and you play Europa League football. Sure, but they will pick up form later on in the season because Rodgers is asking for more from his players. And just to touch on Leicester, because we talked a lot about Man United, they deserved obviously to win that game. But if you want something from me about how they managed to beat us, it's very simple. Against Legia Warsaw, they looked lethargic. They looked like they had a lack of energy. They didn't look like a team that were able to compete against the Polish champions. And fans were very disappointed that night in Poland. Leicester were highly motivated heading into this game. They knew this game was crucial for them to sort of not only rejuvenate their season, but it was also key to help them build up the momentum that they need to get back into that top 4 race. Solid performances across the back line from Marty, Evans, Soyuncu. Soyuncu getting his goal probably made sense in the end because he played extremely well. Tielemans ran the show with Soumare, and it's basically the midfield that we're dying to see, basically. A man who's happy to run free as a number 8 and someone who just does that deep line midfield role. Soumare, he was solid as well. Since he's come into the Premier League, he's fitted in very, very well. It's taken him a bit of time, but he's learning slowly. However, that performance shows what the money they paid for him. Ricardo Pereira played solidly. Castagne is the ultimate utility man, plays across the entire pitch, basically, and he did very well. Pretty much exposed, as you mentioned, Ben, that extremely wide space on the right-hand side because Greenwood wasn't often tracking back. And then he had the willing strikers of Iheanacho and Vardy, as well as that Patson Daka coming off the bench against his first Premier League goal, which is good for him.
Well. Every player in the Leicester shirt put an 8 out of 10 performance. But when you've got a team like Brendan Rodgers has set up there, if you've got every player putting in a 7, 8 out of 10, and then you've got a team who you're playing against who are struggling to put in 5s or 4s, and the cohesion isn't there, you are going to see a dominant victory. Again, I'll put this out on Twitter. I think the 2 goals flatter United. I really do. I think if you go back and watch the game and in a different circumstance with lesser players who are as good as, maybe Lindelof playing that ball or Greenwood with the strike, United lose that game 4-5-0. They do. It was 2 moments that sort of made us look good. And also, again, Ahmed, you sort of hit on this, and sorry to come away from Leicester a little bit, but in terms of being a title-winning side or being able to mount a title challenge, there were 2 things in that game that we didn't do that teams that want to win the league do. That's when you go 1-0 up, you start to control the game. You dictate the tempo. You do what you need to do to make sure that you are going in at halftime at least 1-0 up. Secondly, you don't concede a goal immediately from a kickoff. And that's what we did. And you just don't. You have better experience. You have better know-how. You're switched on better. You're focused better. And for me, that's my biggest concern. It's not the fact that I don't think Ollie can turn around potentially. Our luck, he potentially could. He's done it before, he's done it again. Still not saying that I feel like he is potentially the right guy to take us to the title, but he could still mount a title race. However, we're showing little worrying signs for me, and that's what's tough. Let me just quickly go to a couple of comments here. Kingsley put, a bigger club like Man United has to be ruthless. Ollie is clueless. I mean, he's not clueless, is he? I think ultimately we're in a tough reign of form where unfortunately the trajectory is going slightly downhill, like any business. does every now and then. If they're having a bad run, they're not selling as much products, everything goes downhill. You then hit a blip and everything gets worse. It's one of those. It's life. Frady here says, being Ollie in or out is tedious. Completely agree. It's not supporting the club. It's either overprotecting the manager or abusing him. What happens to supporting United? I 100% agree with that, which is why we try to balance it. Hello to Brown Knight, who says, I'm risking my job watching in the office. Well, look, at least you can't get fired for watching us. But if you watch anything else other than us, then there are certain websites you would get fired for watching during the day in the office. Hello to Bjorn, who says, let's be honest, as Jamie O'Hara said this morning, with Ollie as manager and Fred, Matic and McTominay as our defensive midfielders, the title wait will continue, especially when you look at Chelsea, Liverpool and City managers and squads. The Glazers have turned United into Liverpool from the 90s to 2020. Some interesting thoughts. Talking about Liverpool, let's go into them next, shall we? Mark, they're second in the league. They're sitting pretty. What I find quite funny about Liverpool is Gary Neville's ongoing comments that Liverpool haven't looked like normal Liverpool. I think they've looked fantastic since the first game of the season, to be honest. 5-0 away at Watford. Watford, though, abysmal. We talk about how bad United were. Watford, abysmal. Mark, do you see much of the game? What did you make of Liverpool?
I think I said this a few weeks ago. I just think Liverpool, and maybe this is more hope than anything, but I think Liverpool is 1 or 2 injuries away from completely self-imploding, and they're playing excellent at the moment. Salah, probably the best player in the world. Firmino is scoring, which obviously we were criticising him for last season, but they look very good, and they've certainly got wind in their sails at the moment, which they didn't have a lot of last season. I can't imagine that's all down to Van Dijk, but he's certainly keeping their head above water in many ways. They look very good. Watford are terrible. They've just changed managers. They don't really have any kind of structure. They've changed managers so many times, and when that happens, they need a bit of time to sort of embed and instill the new way of playing. So, listen, it was poor by Watford. It made Liverpool look far better, actually. And I think if you give Watford a few more games, Claudio Ranieri might get a bit more out of them. But it's not looking particularly good. And Liverpool, as you say, are sitting very pretty at the top, really.
Just man for man. And you talk about the Premier League being the pinnacle of football. How are Watford a Premier League side? Honestly, they're just appalling. Just even the quality man for man is just not there. Just yes or no's quickly from either of you. Mark, Mo Salah, the best player in world football right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I said that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely agree. He's probably got the chip on his shoulder this season. Clearly, last season there was a lot of criticism for him. Performances, I think he had against City and other teams. He certainly has kicked on, and let's just say this: he's in a hot streak right now, and he's proving his worth in the Premier League. I wouldn't rule him out to make an impact on Wednesday against Atletico Madrid, but yeah, Watford were poor. Liverpool just ran riot, really. Can't say more than that.
And Firmino, unfortunately, needed those goals as well. Do you know what? I will say one thing on Salah. It sort of feels, doesn't it, with Salah, like when he joined Liverpool, he was that wonder kid, but he wasn't, because he was already like, mid-20s. He sort of feels like he's skipped 5 years of his career to where he is now. I don't know if you guys remember when Messi first came on the scene as a young lad. He had this bit of pace and he played more as a winger. Again, a bit like Salah did 2 or 3 seasons ago. And then he started to mould his game into around being this close control, can take the ball around anyone, makes moments of magic out of nothing, can dictate play and sort of be this invisible assassin on the pitch, but was always there, and opposition players couldn't get him. I think the best example of that Messi is between 06 and 09. Messi seemed to have stopped. He wanted to stop being that pacey winger and wanted to be this technician of a footballer, and that sort of prolonged his career. The frightening thing now is it's like Salah's gone and watched videotapes of Messi between 2006, 2009, and has gone, do you know what? I can do that, and he is. That's what's scary. He looks incredible. And do you know what? I know it's only Norwich, but he done it against City. Not just the goals. When he gets the ball at his feet, the assist to Mane. You've got to have guts to do that, to hit that ball as you did. It was beautiful. Pass. He's just fantastic, Salah. And unfortunately, he plays for Liverpool. But there we go. and we've got him next week. Fun times. Did you know what we mentioned there about Ranieri as a new manager and at Watford? Let's start this chat now about the three managers that I think are close to the edge, and we'll chat about the three games now. We'll start with the party poopers Tottenham beating Newcastle. No, I don't think any of us think that Steve Bruce isn't going to get the sack next week, right? Surely he is done. Ahmed, let me come to you first. Newcastle got the first goal. Hopeless after that.
Yeah, that wasn't good at all from Newcastle. They look. I understand the hype around the takeover has sort of rejuvenated the fan base, and it has obviously got many plot twists to it. Will probably be that's a whole different debate for another day. But on the pitch, Newcastle do look too much different to what they've been before even the money came in. They still look like a side that have guts, that will give it a go, but they don't defend very well. And Tottenham exposed them for that yesterday. First and foremost, what proved to me that Newcastle were not exactly there was when Ndombele scores the equaliser, because simply put, the goalkeeper doesn't move, the centre-back is rock solid, and then Ndombele just has pretty much a free shot at goal. It was pretty good to watch, but if I'm a Newcastle fan, I'm a little worried seeing that happening to my defence, seeing them just rock solid so they now won't go past them. Kane finishes well. Obviously, touching on it, won't speak about it too much, but happy to hear that the fan who had the medical incident yesterday is okay. And big props to Sergio Reguilon for that as well, because he sounded it out to referee. And to everyone who acted as well at the stadium, it was heroic stuff from the doctors and those around the stricken fan, who I'm hopeful for a speedy recovery. But yeah, I'm sure that was on the players' minds, but it didn't change the way the game went after that. Tottenham killed Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it didn't help them going down to 10 men. But yeah, Newcastle were woeful. I think still, though, there's time for them to improve. If they get to January, I think that's really their main objective now. Let's just see through this first half of the season, get to January, then get the players in to sort of help them propel them up the table. But right now, we're kind of just seeing how they are with the current team and what they're working with. We know Steve Bruce is pretty much on the brink anyway, and it's clear to see that they don't want him there. Well, it's interesting to see though who will replace him if he does end up leaving. But anyhow, 1,000 games as a manager. Congratulations to him for that. And yeah, a bit to learn though still for Newcastle.
I said this to Charlotte's dad, my fiance's dad, whilst I was away with him, and we spoke about Bruce, and we said how that job could be perfect for Steven Gerrard, because he literally could do no wrong in it. He would go there, steady the ship for a couple of years, bring in some good signings. They'll definitely finish in a better position next year. Then Klopp's always said he wants to leave in like 2023, 24, whatever, Liverpool. Yeah. You've then Steven Gerrard's gone and won titles and done what he's done with Rangers, gone to Newcastle, got good Premier League experience at a big Premier League club, and then gone straight to Liverpool. It's like the perfect gravy train for Steven Gerrard and for Liverpool and Liverpool fans as well. I think that could be a great appointment for Newcastle and a great appointment for Gerrard as well, a good position to be in. Mark, we've actually gone from the start. When we first started doing this show, we were talking about Tottenham having a bad start to the season, looking hopeless under Nuno. They'll sit above us. They're grinding out wins. They're winning games. It's not bad, is it, if you're a Tottenham fan at the moment?
Yeah, I'm still not very convinced by them at all, actually. I still hold firm with what I said the other week. I think that's going to run out of steam at some stage. I think they're very poor. They recently sort of changed to more of a 4-2-3-1, which has helped them for sure. But I just think if Harry Kane doesn't really play, Tottenham don't play at all. And they're just too pragmatic for me. If you make that comparison to when Pochettino was in, they were far more exciting, far more attacking, and you'd have more of a stronger bet on them for winning. And yeah, I mean, listen, I think I read a stat the other day actually. I think Chelsea, after their takeover, it took them 2 years to win the first league title. I think for City it was 4 years. For Leicester, with their big takeover, it was 5. And I mean, Newcastle have really got to try and stay in the Premier League this season. I think they're going to really struggle, and all of this uproar and elation at the moment is going to quickly disappear. But yeah, Spurs. Look, I think the 38th game in the Premier League table obviously tells you how you've done over the course of the season. And whilst they might be in fifth at the minute and they've won their last two, I really struggle to see them in the top six this season. I really do. I just think they're too rigid, too pragmatic, and if Harry Kane isn't there, they're not there at all.
Shades of Mourinho.
Yeah, he got his goal as well, which means that hopefully Kane will kick into stride now for those Spurs fans, and for Spurs fans only, I say hopefully. So we mentioned Bruce as one of the three managers. We've mentioned Ollie. I think he's potentially another one of the managers that's gaining some heat at the moment. And the other manager I want to talk about is Daniel Farke at Norwich. The only reason being they're bottom of the league, they haven't won yet. And if you have a look at their upcoming fixtures, it's a very, very tough ask at the moment for Norwich. I think there's been a few games this season where Norwich have sort of shown a performance. I don't think any of us really expected a lot from them and maybe surprised us, but I can't see them staying up this year. And you just wonder. I mean, this is what's difficult. Norwich have gone up, gone down, and Farke has been the pioneer in being able to bring them back up to the Premier League a couple of times. So are Norwich happy to play that game? Or do they now go, right, actually, we want to stay in the Premier League. Let's go and get, I don't know, if Bruce goes, bring in a Bruce who knows the English game, Allardyce, someone like that, who you know can give you a better chance of safety, given a January transfer window as well. The games they've got coming up, away to Chelsea, away to Brentford, home to Leeds. They've got Southampton, Wolves, Newcastle, Tottenham, United. There's some really tricky fixtures coming up. I just can't see Farke staying in a job for long if they want to stay in a Premier League. So, Ahmed, let me come to you. They drew 0-0 with Brighton. Again, that's not bad. But again, let's face it, Brighton, poor in front of goal again, overplaying it. They should have taken the 3 points there at Norwich.
I'm surprised they still have 8 goals scored this season. And by now, it's that curse from last season striking again, the expected goals statistic against Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm surprised they haven't changed their name to Expected Goals FC yet by this point. But no, they play good football, but again, end product just not there. And put it this way, I think just based on what I saw, Norwich created the better chances in the game. They could, Josh Sargent with an open goal should really just lariat that into the back of the net if he has even half an attempt at it, he'll get that in the back of the net. So that was unlucky. Generally, though, they're a team I'm very worried about, and they're doing as much as they can with the players they have. They made a lot of signings in the summer. I'm hoping no injuries happen to like Norman and Lise Melu, because they're very key men in their midfield. Yanoulis, who came in, a Greek player who's a talented left-footed player, very good on that left-hand side, can play off the right as well. He's had a solid performance on Saturday. There's individual talents that do very well in a team, but they just don't seem to have that momentum. They need that momentum to propel them forwards. And yes, they're still yet to win a game, and I'm sure they'll get round to finding that victory in the end. With Farke, though, it's one of those things we talked about with Ollie. Is it as far as he can take Norwich at this point? Can he push them further? The system they have there is designed really for them to be sustainable, so that they can not only be a Premier League club, but be a club that can stay for long in the division, not be a yo-yo or constantly going up and down the leagues. So their aims are obviously a little bit more different to, per se, a Brighton, who are trying to stay in the Premier League as a more mid-table pushing into the top 10 sort of team. With Farke's position at the moment, I think there's a lot of patience at Norwich for him, but Chelsea is no easy feat, and I think they will have a hard time there on Saturday. Let's just see, I think, the next three games from now, what their situation is. Up to Brentford, for example. If they get past Brentford and they're still in this position, I would be quite concerned as a Norwich fan. But yeah, they knew before they came up this season, this is going to be a hard season again, having experienced it in 2019-2020. And this season is no different. So fingers crossed that they do improve. But my goodness, Brighton have started the season very well. And as I said earlier, they're grinding results, they're getting the wins, they're playing good football. And that's probably what's keeping them in the top 6 for now. But we know later on, the serious contenders will hopefully start to increase their form, get better throughout the season, and Brighton will start to have their shaky moments. But
what you're saying
Scott
there,
happens
Ahmed,
to
I think with Potter and Brighton, it's the good and bad of having such rigid structure and a way of playing football that they just can't get out of it. They do it one way and no other way. And sometimes you do just need a bit of ruggedness or a bit of magic to go for you. And you don't need to FIFA goal every time. You don't need to overplay it every time. And I think they're guilty of doing that. Just putting up some comments from earlier on. Fred Woodward, Gerrard is a very good shout. Ben, I've seen it happening, a good entry point into the Premier League and Liverpool. Oh, here we go. Brown Knight. So we're not putting up chat comments then. Only good ones, Brown Knight. I mean, you put 7 or 8 in there, and I can't think of any of them to put up. Although he did make a good shout. Obviously, I'm winding you up, Brown Knight. I think Hassan Hootel might get sacked before Fark. I would have been with you, but as we know with Hassan Hootel, when he tends to pick up a victory and gets going, Southampton improve. And the train starts steaming, so to think. So I actually expect Southampton to pick up now. But Hassan Hootel is a good name to throw in the hat. So just quickly then, on the 3 managers, Mark, Ahmed, come to you one by one. Who's going to get the chop first? Bruce, Ollie, or Fark? Go on, Mark.
Yeah, I think Bruce still. I mean, it's not Ollie. He's still going to get a few more weeks. We spoke about this last night on Uncut. Yeah, it's got to be Farker or Bruce, but I would say Bruce. It's been the fact that it's been so disrespectful, really, and so spoken about in the media, and Bruce is aware of this, and just how it's not been quiet, it's not been subtle in any way. It must be absolutely. I mean, it's so disrespectful, and I just can't see it any other way. I just think Brucey, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I made you an agreement.
I intend to. I just think that it is there for the rise on the wall, but it's not his fault. I think really the fans have just not liked him since he arrived, and they knew that once he came into the club, he was there just to keep them in the Premier League and not propel them further forward. Now, obviously, all these changes are happening. It's clear that the fans want him gone. They are desperate for him to move on. He is a Geordie boy. I'm sure he cares deeply for the city and for the club, but. Like Mark said, I find it very disrespectful that the media have treated him as as if he is pretty much gone in that way. It's not fair. A manager who is someone, if your job, for example, was in had some concern to your manager and he wanted to talk, he hasn't spoken to you about it, but you've heard rumors from your colleagues and all that, you'd want to hear from the horse's mouth about it. So it's clear to see that the owners are still just for now looking at him and thinking, are we going to keep him for too long, or are we just going to move him on as soon as possible? At the moment he's still at the club, but for how much longer, I'm quite sure it's not very, very long. They will make changes very soon, and he won't be there for it. So for now, he's just got to work with the tools he has. I'd say Farker second and Ollie third. We've spoken enough about Ollie, but with Farker...
Just very quickly, sorry to interrupt. What's really interesting is Steve Bruce is the favourite. Ollie is second. Ranieri is third. Brendan Rodgers is fourth. And then Nuno is fifth. And then Daniel Farker.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, I think Fred Woodward makes a good point here in terms of what they're doing on a low budget, but the fact that they're not a Premier League side, and it's whether Stuart Webber and the Norwich hierarchy acknowledge the fact that they're not a Premier League side, so they're happy with being up and going down again. If they want to stay up, I think they have to make the change sooner rather than later. Twitter have voted this as well. They've gone Bruce, Ollie, then Farker. Actually, again, massively. Bruce 51%, Ollie 41%, and Farker 7%, which is quite interesting, although that changed halfway through. So, yeah. Let's quickly, I mentioned Hassan Hootel. I won't go into this in too much depth. I'll cover this. Southampton beat Leeds 1-0. It looked like quite a good game, this actually. However, Dan James missed a great opportunity for Leeds in that one as well. He played well apart from that. But again, it's just his end product at times. Do you know what? Adama Traore and Dan James are the same players. I'm convinced about it. They're just in different bodies. They show all the gil, all the passion, the strength, the pace. Like Dan James is actually quite strong. He barged off a couple of Southampton players and went on some great runs. But then the end product is just, it's not there. And Mark, I mentioned Adama Traore there, which brings me on to Villa Wolves, because what a game. 5 goals in the second half. Villa went 2-0 up. Wolves brought it back to 3-2. But I want to focus on 2 areas. That's the midfields, and 2 midfielders in particular. John McGinn, who was brilliant throughout for Aston Villa, and Ruben Neves, who, again, was brilliant throughout for Villa and got that bit of a lucky goal towards the end. 2 midfielders that United could do with?
Yeah, and you know what? When we were doing shows in the summer, Ruben Neves was a big name under the hat, and he's obviously scored a goal. That's not really what his job is. He doesn't score many, but when he does, he scores some fantastic ones, and certainly someone we should look at for sure. John McGinn, another name that's been in the hat. I think a couple of seasons ago. I've got quite a few Villa mates, and they're all talk about him very highly, and yeah, he had a very good game over the weekend. Obviously, a bit of a derby, that one. Wolves are starting to pick up a little bit of form now. Mentioned the other week with Jimenez scoring, he didn't even score, but obviously they've picked it up a little bit, which is good to see. I don't have a soft spot for them, but I like Wolves. I like what they've done over the years. I like the players that they've brought in, and whilst they have been a little bit sort of pragmatic the last couple of seasons, they are playing good football. They have done this season, and they were obviously lucky to come out with 3-2 winners, but probably deservedly so in the end.
Yeah, spot on. They've won all their last three. Again, like you say, showing form, you can't do much more than that. Ahmed, let me come over to you very, very quickly on this one. City against Burnley. Look, it was a 2-0 win. It was quite comfortable, but the two chances that Burnley had on goal should have really hit the back of the net, shouldn't they? 2-0 doesn't really show the full story.
Absolutely. Maxwell Cornet's been a breath of fresh air for Burnley since he arrived. And he's definitely someone that I think Premier League teams will worry about later on in the season whenever they get to meet him, because he's very quick. He's not as fast as Dan James or Adama Traore, but when he has the opportunity, he is clinical. Has history with Man City. He scored against them in the Champions League a couple of seasons ago. So he's known to play well against City, and could have scored on Saturday. Really good opportunity there, and I think Josh Brownhill's shot should have gone in as well. But other than that, yeah, for City, that's another big win. Every game now is crucial because of the nature of the beast that is the Premier League. I think even Pep knows now how much of a risk he is taking with all these internationals that he's sending, or all the Brazilians having to go in to play their matches, and he's sacrificed obviously leaving his main stars from Brazil out to give a chance to some players on Saturday. Bernardo Silva took his opportunity very well, and he's probably one of the best players in the league right now, just based on pure form. He's confident, he's playing very well, scoring goals, and making a significant contribution to the team. And whenever he gets a chance to play, he plays very, very well. So, and it'll benefit not only him, but his national team, because they've seen the benefits of his good form carried into that as well. Generally, Man City just playing good football. I think they're going to have a very good run, and they don't have to worry about the Champions League too much. They have a back-to-back game against Club Brugge now, so relatively easy tie for them. Nothing to complain about if I'm a City fan at the moment. I don't like saying that, but here we are. They are second in the league, so you have to
shout out to Sean Dyche playing a 4-4-2 as well. You don't see that often in the league, but he has done it so far this season on every occasion. So shout out to Dyche. They're still not doing badly, Burnley, obviously in the bottom three, but onwards and upwards for them, I expect.
Just above City, 5-0 again, like we normally see.
Yeah, it's always a way, isn't it? At least they've improved. Yeah, a slight improvement. Mark, let's go to the team just above City, Chelsea, 1-0 against Brentford, and really a Brentford team that just threw the kitchen sink at them in the last 15-20 minutes. But Chelsea withstood. Let's talk about Mendy. I mean, it's about time Chelsea had a half-decent goalkeeper, isn't it?
Yeah, I was conversing with someone about him the other day, actually. I mean, it's taken his time, but he looks very good. He made some absolutely worldy saves against Brentford the other day. And really, Chelsea very fortunate to come out on top, quite honestly. But yeah, it's about times. Obviously, since Petr Cech, they've not really had a consistent goalkeeper, and I think they've found it. I think it was only a few years prior to that he was ready to quit football, was at the job centre, and here he is playing for Chelsea, number one, and has really lifted them as a number one. But listen, I want to talk about Brentford a bit. I think they look like a great team. Really well drilled, exciting football. And any other day, and I think the manager came out and said this afterwards, he said that we absolutely annihilated them. And if we played them another 9 times, we would have won 9 of them. And he's absolutely right. I think, Chelsea can be there for the taking. They're not invincible, and Brentford, they just look exciting. They've had some tough games. Arsenal, Chelsea, and one other, I can't remember the team,
Liverpool.
and they're sitting at the moment lower than us in ninth. Have won 2 in their last 5, but those 2 games were really tough. But they play some great football, and we wanted to talk about Leeds last season and how they were this club that have come up and play exciting football, but they didn't have anything to show for it. Brentford, on the other hand, I think we can really talk about that in that way.
Yeah, they look great. They really do look great. And they've got a nice run of fixtures coming up as well. Brown Knight, Ahmed, has hit on what I said to you. It does look like someone like a clown's going to jump out your curtains in a minute and scare the living daylights out of
I
all
can
of us.
promise you my room is a safe place and there are no clowns.
Okay. Is that why you... So are they curtains up, or have you just got like wood up? Is it like barricaded doors and everything? Is it your safe house?
There's a bit of a shoddy bit of window work that's been done recently. So I've got to be careful with how I manage it, otherwise it may go wrong. And let's just say I'm protecting it for everyone's goodwill. Before we sign off, I wanted to touch on what Mark was saying about Brentford Chelsea. Yeah, Chelsea, fantastic team. They've done very well this season, top of the league, obviously. But my God, do Brentford play football? They play really good football. I think they're an amazing addition to this division, and will be, if they stay up this year, a great team to watch for the years to come if they survive in this league, because Thomas Frank has a side that is so competitive, so forward thinking, so confident. Had they got something from this game, we'd all be singing their praises. But look, it's the market of champions if you win games against sides that will really give it to you. And Chelsea did exactly that. Obviously, you've got massive thanks to Edouard Mendy for that one, because the guy's come leaps and bounds since he came to the Premier League and has proved his calling as he's now becoming one of the best keepers in the division. Probably is right now just based on his performances. So let's see with Chelsea and how they fare at the top of the Premier League. But Brentford, I felt at least one of them had to go in. But it was Mendy's day.
Shout out to Ashwin for commenting, so that we don't respond. That's Goldbridge-esque. I actually live my life trying to be Mark Goldbridge, so I do really, really appreciate that, and Mark knows that. But the reason why on this show we find it difficult to read out comments is we've got to cover, 9 games today. Usually it's 10 in the space of usually about 45 to 50 minutes. It's really tough to then be able to fly over to all the comments. And I know you don't want us to just litter comments on screen. You'd rather discover the comments. So if we have, discuss the comments. So if we have time to discuss the comments, we'll bring them up, we'll talk about them, we'll mention them. But obviously sometimes it's really, really difficult to do that when we've got such little time to discuss bloody 20 Premier League clubs, a number of decisions and a number of things going on. So I appreciate you, Ashwin. We appreciate Brown Knight. Always appreciate Ugly Bear and everyone in the comments. Just sorry, sometimes we don't get round to it. I know some hosts on the channel do just put comments up on screen. I personally don't like doing that. I like to discuss what people say because I feel like it's a little bit more meaningful. So sorry if I've not put your comments up, and we do appreciate you getting involved in the live chat, sharing the video, hitting the like button, all that. Just sometimes it's really tough to do. So Ugly Bear, not heard anything about the protests at Old Trafford this weekend, but if we do, we'll let you know. I think it's more of a media thing. I don't think there's anything actually happening.
By Daily Star, actually. It's the only one that's reported it.
Yeah.
Not sure what that's about. And Fred just quickly put about Chelsea being resilient, and it's spot on. They've shown it twice. And we spoke earlier on at the start of the show, I thought we'd come full circle here, about how United showed worrying signs about not being title contenders because of the things that we do. Well, Chelsea is showing every sign of being title contenders with everything they do. So I definitely think they're the team to beat. One more game to talk about, of course, Arsenal Palace later on today. Mark, we'll get the final say from you on this one. Moyes' West Ham, they're on a title push, aren't they? Bloody hell. What a victory, by the way, at Goodison Park, 1-0, and they played really well.
Yeah, obviously we saw how good they were last season, and it was up to Moyes to sort of turn that into something this season. And they're sort of grinding out results. They didn't really make too much investment, but they didn't lose any big players other than maybe Jesse, I suppose. He was obviously a pivotal part end last season. But they seem to be staying there or thereabouts, don't they? And they're sitting one place behind us. It won the same amount of games, drawn the same amount of games, and lost the same amount of games. So I guess it's always always a different narrative, isn't it, depending on who you're looking at. But a good result. Everton obviously flying high at that time, and good result from them. We'll have to see where they end up at the end of the season, I think.
100%. I was just going to say, Ahmed, it shows, doesn't it, what a difference a result could make? Because if Everton had beaten West Ham, they would have been a couple of points off the top of the league, and we would have been talking about how Rafa Benitez has done so freaking well. Well, at the moment, we just sat here going on about, well, Everton have done well. West Ham have done well. They've caught up with United. They've caught up with Everton. But ultimately, Everton have had a great start to the season, haven't they, despite this result?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't. They're 7th and 8th, and I think that's roughly where they will be at the end of the season. Who knows though, if they are going to break into that top 6, it will be one of those two because of this. Tactically, Rafa Benitez is a genius. He knows how to get the best out of a team. He'll get them to play for him, and some players that look average on paper will turn up and probably look quite good for a little while. Tanza being a good example of this since he's brought him in. Alex Iwobi's had some shaky starts of the season, but will come good, I'm sure. As for West Ham, though, their Europa League curse isn't affecting them yet, but it is doing good for their league form. Declan Rice ran the show on Saturday. Happy to see Thomas Souček came across okay after that incident with Rondon. They are a team. They are a team now under David Moyes, and it is going to be a tough year for them. So keep these performances up and make sure that they keep scoring the goals. Get out of the Europa League group, more importantly, is clearly what the fans' objective is. And let's see how far they'll go in the league. But roughly there and thereabouts this season for those two.
Do you know what? This fixture list is so weird. So Arsenal play Palace tonight and Arsenal play Villa on Friday. Bloody weird that. But then there's some interesting games at the weekend. Next week's weekend review. Join us 1:00 Monday because we've got so many good games to talk about. Chelsea home to Norwich. That should be a formality, really. But then looking across this fixture list as well, you've got Leeds and Wolves. That sounds extremely tasty. That's a 3:00 kickoff next weekend. Brighton City is the 5:30 game next weekend, which again would be really interesting. And then Sunday, talk about Super Sundays. You've got West Ham Spurs, United Liverpool, Brentford Leicester, all on the same day. So it's going to be an interesting weekend review next week. And I think we'll really see this Premier League table change quite a bit over the coming weeks. Mark, thank you. Brilliant as always. Great job on Uncut last night as well. Ahmed, thank you as well. Look, loads of content coming from us. We've got the Reds Roundup where we talk about everything but the men's team. The first team tonight at 6:00 with Connor. They're going to be talking about Mark Skinner, the women's team. Can he fire United into Champions League football? Do not miss that tonight and learn a bit more about the under-23s, the academy and the women's team. Then tomorrow, Mark's back. He's on preview hosting duty. I believe Ahmed's on that. It's the Atalanta preview at midday. Catch us Wednesday straight after the game when Mark's ugly face will be back on screen yet again with the reaction show. And then Thursday, you've got James on the tactical preview. You've got James on Timeline Talk on Friday. And then Uncut is back next Sunday night. And I will make an appearance next Sunday night on Uncut. I promise. For now, though, guys, thank you. Ahmed, thank you for all your help. Appreciate you on the last couple of days, buddy. Thank you guys for watching. Share this video, like it, and we'll speak to you guys soon. This is Well Playing Outro. Bye for now.